Donc, Sophie, t'es bon, t'es bien avec ta... Ouais, là, nous, on voit ta présentation, là.
Ok, moi aussi.
On t'entend très, très bien. Mayo, can you hear Sophie properly?
Yes, she's very clear.
Okay, so we're going to start now, Mayo, you can invite people in now. You can accept them into the room, okay? So, Mayo, we've already had a conversation with Cécile Doran just a few moments ago about marketing. We are about to discuss with Sophie Whitmer, who is also a marketing director, an expert in marketing, about marketing in general, but also specifically on the kids wear. Do you want to give us some insights on kids wear in Nigeria?
Okay, so the kids wear segment in Nigeria essentially is still largely dependent on products from Europe.
Okay.
Products from the United Kingdom, Matalan, Gap, Primark, and the likes from the large stores in Europe. Still very much dependent on products from Europe. That's the kids fashion segment. So we don't really have very established manufacturing in that space, because the average customer in this space kind of believes that quality in terms of kids wear has to come from Europe. So that's how it is at the moment. But there are a few people who are doing footwear in particular. There's a growing footwear segment in Nigeria regarding kids wear. There's also a growing made-to-measure. There's also a made-to-measure market. That's the traditional market for fashion for kids wear. Made-to-measure, bespoke, and all of that. Because Christmas is coming in a few weeks, and so that's actually that season right now. The bespoke, the made-to-measure. But in terms of in a structured manner, an actually structured retail market for kids fashion wear in Nigeria today is largely dependent on products from Europe, manufactured in India, in Bangladesh, Gap, Primark, and the likes. Yes. So
what about the uniform market in Nigeria? Because I understand that most children, it's like in the UK, they have a uniform, isn't it?
School wears. So school wears, uniforms, housewares, sweaters and cardigans and all of that. So yes, there is a sector. It's not very structured, like I said, but yes, there's a huge opportunity there, because almost all of the schools in Nigeria produce their uniforms locally. And also more than 95% of them use uniforms. Only a few don't use uniforms. 95 to 96% of schools in Nigeria, for the primary schools and for the little kids, all wear uniforms. So yes, there's also a huge opportunity there. Yes.
Okay, so our next speaker is someone amazing, like all the people from this conference so far. She is an expert, not just in kids wear, in so many other, like saying, beauty, fashion, and she's got a very good understanding of that. So we're going to talk about kids wear, but not only, we're going to brush it up through marketing in general also, but yes, we will have a little focus on kids wear. Sophie Whitmer, welcome to you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to speak today.
So, Sophie, I want to understand, can you tell us a little bit of your career path, what you've been doing?
Yes, so as you said previously, so I am a marketing and communication specialist. I have been working for 25 years already, ooh la la, for international luxury brands in the fashion, accessories, cosmetics, but also spirits industries. And I have worked as well, both in agencies, but also in advertisers, companies. and in companies of different sizes like SMEs, multinationals, but also with emerging independent designers. And I'm based in Paris. So this is why I have such a charming French accent. Do you hear me? I can't hear you.
Sorry, my mic was mute. Yeah. No, I can hear you very well. My mic was mute. This is very broad. So it's great because you've picked up a lot of tips and tactics and experience from different areas and brands, because different brands work different because they have different objective and targets as well. Mm-hmm. So from your expert way into marketing, how would you define your vision of marketing? Because we all have one, you know. How would you define it?
It's really key when you want to develop and to launch a brand, because it really gives you the tools to really help you to build a unique brand. So a unique brand identity, and also it gives you the tools as well to communicate on your unique brand identity to your targeted customer.
Yeah.
Make it very simple.
No, it's really that.
So to me, what is really important is really to be focused on your targeted customer, and it has to be at the center of everything you build around your brand.
True. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree.
So do you want me to go through the presentation?
Yes, please. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So today I will be maybe a focus on the children's wear, versus adult wear.
Yeah.
So very quickly, the children wear globally is a very mature market with and highly competitive, but also very fragmented, with very big, famous retailers that we all know, like Nike, Adidas, Benetton, blah, blah. But you have also strong multi-brands online, and also a plethora of very small and independent brands. So it's very crowded, let's say. But compared to adult wear, the children's wear is resisting compared to the adult wear in the market. Mm-hmm. It has been booming in the last years, but we can expect also that the market might doomed a little bit, is doomed to decline.
Okay.
And why? Because globally, the birth rate has fallen over the years. The trends, I mean, the birth rates has fallen in Europe, in the US, but also in Asia, but also in China, even if the number of births per year is huge. It's around 17 million of newborn per year. So it still remains a big market. And also, so I don't know how it is really in Africa. I think it might have declined as well, but it might also be a little bit different from a country to another one.
Yes, of course. So, okay, well, I didn't know all of that. That is really, really interesting. Yeah, okay. So specificities, right?
The children market is still okay. So it declined less quickly than the adult wear, but still is facing new challenges, and we will go through those challenges and also opportunities through the presentation.
Okay.
So what is maybe important to have in mind when it comes to children's wear is that it's a very broad universe as well as the adult wear. So in children's wear, you have ready to wear, accessorize, shoes, you have nightwear, and sometimes you have also cosmetics.
Yeah.
But what is very specific to children's wear is that you have 3 specific categories. Baby fashion, it's for newborn to 2 years old. Then you have children's wear, children's fashion from 2 years old to 10 years old. And then you have teenagers from 10 years old to 14/16 years old. So what is very specific to children's wear versus adult wear is the grading, the sizing. When you work for a fashion brand for adults, you just have to pick a few measurements and then you change the size for each new size. For children, you cannot do that. And why? It's because depending of their age, they have the body shape evolves a lot. So for example, for toddlers, for small babies, let's say they have barely no neck.
That's true.
No, mais voilà. They have a very adorable pot belly. And they wear diapers, so you really have to, let's say, select a few measurement points in the neck, the hips, the bust, in order to be able to build your sizings and to make sure that the garments, the clothes, fit perfectly the kids while keeping the shape of the clothes.
Okay.
And it can be costly and it can be very time consuming for the brand. So this is also something that the designers who want to develop a fashion brand for kids have also to have in mind, okay? Another specificities, let's say, it's about regulation, safety standards, and labeling requirements. Okay. So we have a lot of rules, standards, regulation all over the world when it comes to fashion, and also with very specific requests regarding fashion brand for children. So in Europe, the regulation organization is called, let's say, REACH, the norm. It's in the US, it's CPSC, and you have also another one in Asia or maybe in China. So it is really important because if you want to develop, to launch a brand and to export the brand abroad and to be able to sell your brand outside of Africa, let's say, you really have to follow the regulation, the safety standards, and the labeling requirements. Otherwise, you won't be able you might facing huge penalties, fines, and even imprisonment.
Okay, so I wanna say something on that. So basically, at contrary to adult wear, when you are abroad, Africa, America, South America, Asia, whatever, and you want to enter the European market for kids wear, like confectionery of kids wear, you have a quite, and I guess it's a bit like toys as well, because kids wear of toys, yeah, and the regulation on that is absolutely drastic. But I didn't know that that was also the case for kids wear.
I mean, so, yeah, a European brand who wants to sell its products in the US has to follow the American regulation. So it's the same for every brand. Wow.
And then those regulations, do you have to pay a tax? How does it work if I want to?
No, it's just the way you will build the product. So for example, you have to make sure that the product is safe and that there is no line, pas line, mais comment on peut dire un truc qui va that the children is not going to face any strangulation, for example.
Okay, yeah. So if I know, because my product is tested, I've done all the measures.
Test, blah blah, go, enfin voilà, through all the norms you have to follow.
So if I know that my product is absolutely secure and safe and everything, when my product goes to, and that's quite an interesting topic actually, because if you're talking about
very difficult, right? I mean, even big brands, they hire someone dedicated in the company working on regulation, the norms. It's very specific, and especially if you have a lot of manufacturers you are working with, you will have to make sure that they are able to provide you an official document with all the traceability, how the fabric has been created, did they use chemicals, and blah blah.
So that's quite interesting, because that is another cost to add to your international business.
Time and cost.
Time and cost.
Right.
And then, do we have the same problem? So do we have the same problem if we do an online business and that I send my product directly to the consumer? How do they know that my product is fit for market?
If there is any control at custom, and if you are not able to provide the document required by customs before enter the country, your product will not be able to be delivered and reach the boutiques of that country.
Okay, so boutiques, we're talking shop, but if I send it to just a consumer because I have an online shop and I do sales direct to consumer, how does this work then? Because nobody really
they do random random control as well, even voilà. So of course, if you are a small brand, let's say it's maybe less risky,
yeah,
but still.
Okay. So that's definitely, in terms of international business, is a cost that people should consider to have. And time, and definitely, and time, but also skills. So it adds, I would say, two costs, because you need the cost of someone who can actually.
You can do it by yourself, but it takes a lot of time.
No, but that's it. Maybe you need to think. Okay, when I'm gonna launch at the on the international scene, to pick the right countries, to add to that. The commissioning of a consultant for your internet. So you'd better prevent problem than be sorry, and that costs you a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then, have an expert that can guide you through the custom, because I used to do custom for a pearl company. Trust me, the carnet,
it's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare, and I would advise to absolutely everybody to never ever do the carnet yourself. I'm gonna have to swear here, but it's a head fuck. It's like it could cost you so much money for one line which is wrong, and get all your products sent back to you plus a fine. It's really something that you have to take into account. The carnet for international custom is something that get an expert to either teach you how to do it or to do it for you. There is some firm that does it, but this is not something that I would try to cut corners of, because that would at the end only cost you more money than what you can afford.
Yes. Exactly.
Next slide.
Bah, je peux pas.
Oh.
J'ai plus la main.
Oh. Do I have? Mayo, can you do the next slide? We can't do the next slide. She can't do it. He doesn't want to do it on our screen. Ça marche plus chez toi?
I can't. Maybe our computer is hanging or something, but I can't.
Okay, c'est bon.
Okay, good. So good.
Okay. So another specificity is also it's also always think practical and comfortable when you want to design a product for children. Before thinking of doing something very trendy, think practical for the parents and it has also to be very comfortable for the kids. The kid has to be able to move, he has to be able to sit, he has to be able, I don't know, to maybe not run, but
yeah.
And still the outfit, the garment still has to have a good looking and a nice fit on the body of the children. Okay?
Yeah.
Then let's talk about target, which is maybe also specific for the children market. Over 50% of the kids by the age of 11, let's say in Europe and in the US, own a mobile phone. And by 11 years old, they all have, I mean, 90% of them own a device and a mobile phone. Okay, so this is for the children. For the parents, it's almost the same. They are all connected to internet. They are all following influencers, and almost 80% of them are consulting the website of the brands before doing a purchase, okay? That means that both parents and children are ultra connected and they have access to more and more and more content and more brands, okay? So it is very difficult because especially if you want to target young children and teenagers, you have to attract the children, but you also have to attract the parents because they are the final decision maker in the purchase. So for adults wear, I mean, you target adults and that's it, your target, women, age, blah, blah, whatever. But for children's wear, you have to target both, especially for the teenage.
Yeah, like around my son's age, like 11.
Ouais.
He's actually better than me on Google to find, like, he goes to his own live conferences. And I'm like, you have a live conference? Wow. So, you know, and there is some way to target children. The way that you target children, it's very interesting because I can see it with my son. So he goes to live conference. If it's something that interests him, he will go into live conference. For sure, he will attend them and he will participate with his opinion and stuff. Definitely YouTube. YouTube is crazy, but they really go on YouTube for everything. Google, Siri.
I will tell you a story about that as well.
TikTok, Baby Fulham, TikTok, Snapchat. He's not at all on Instagram. Instagram is for all people. That's for moms and our friends. Snapchat, TikTok.
TikTok is key when you want to target young children, teenager. They have a huge rate of conversion.
Yes, huge. I mean, Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube. It's a place where you're gonna find those children. And it's places that me as the mother, I never go there. He goes on YouTube. If he has to cook something or he wants to make himself a cake, he would go on. I've got stacks of cookbooks. He doesn't open them. He would go on YouTube. So you can watch a video.
Quicker.
That I also think that the format for those kids, it's video, picture, nah. Audio, nah. Video. That's all they want to watch.
They are also watching a lot of TVs, a lot of VODs. Yeah. So they are multi-screen now. So it's a very difficult target to catch, and especially in a very noisy, crowded, and very competitive market.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Alors, je vais faire autrement. Voilà. So I will go quite quickly on this slide because I guess that Cécile has already go through it during the session.
Talk to us about strategy and action plan.
I will. So, as Cécile told you, branding, all the work you have to do en amont is really key. Okay, because you have a lot of brands on the same kind of positioning. You have a lot of brands selling the same product. You have a lot of brands claiming, the same positioning, concept, etc. So your branding will really help you to be unique and to be perceived as unique from the customers. Okay, it will really help you to build emotions with your customer, with your target. Okay, so you really have to define a strong storyline. You really have to be able to explain what is the purpose of your brand. What bring you to create that brand, that product with that positioning? What kind of problem in the world you want to resolve? You really have to be able to define in a few, 3, 4, 5 adjectives, and maybe in one sentence, the concept and the positioning of your brand. And if you are not able to be able to present your brand and to explain how unique it is, nobody else will be able to do it.
Yes.
Okay, so this is very important. So, and especially in a very crowded market. So the other thing is you really have to be consistent in terms of marketing activities. So whatever, on all the touch points, whatever the channel, your brand image, your brand message, your brand identity, your brand values have to be readable and the same on all the channels you are using in the store, during a pop-up store, when you send a newsletter,
and on that,
when you are on social media.
And I want to stop you with that because all the touch points, how would you define? I know you're not a merchandiser, yeah, but you would have some insight about this. How would you define the good touch points in a physical shop and online?
Alors, a physical shop to me is one of the touch points.
Okay.
Okay. A website is one of the touch points. Social media is one of the touch points. When you send newsletter, it's a tool, but voilà. So everywhere a customer can discover, see, enter in interact with your brand, or be exposed to your brand or your product. This is a touch point.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's good. I get that now.
And of course, for the children wear, you have to do it both for both the parents and the kids.
Yes, that's the thing. Yeah, you need to, you need to double up on everything.
You need to adapt your strategy and your communication according, of course, to your target and where do they go to buy a product, or if what are they interested in? I don't know. For example, the kids gaming is huge. Maybe less for the parents. So really, you really have to maybe like create. This is what we call a personas. But okay, so the kid to my brands, he goes to this kind of school. He likes to do sport, or he likes to play piano. And then when you have built this character, then you will be able to say, okay, he's a fan of basketball. How can I target the kids fan of basketball? So this is the way you work in order to get in touch and to interact with your target.
Okay. And is this why often when you go to buy clothes, you can see the matching outfits in women's shops so they can match with their daughters?
So also what is very important, it's because it's a very crowded market. It is not only about your product, it's really about the whole universe. You can build the whole look and feel, the whole lifestyle you can build around your brand and your product. That will make the difference.
Okay.
Alors, next slide. Okay. So, as you pinpoint, let's talk about a few trends in the children wear market. Mini-me. So, you have noticed that mini-me dressing is a huge subject.
Yes.
Okay. So, you have famous luxury houses like Oscar de la Renta and Dolce & Gabbana, who have offered, who have declined, let's say, their women's collection into mini capsule collection for children, for parents who wanted to play the matchy look with their kids. And of course, a lot of celebrities helped to develop the trends, posting a lot of pictures of them, twinning pictures of them with their kids, okay?
Yeah.
So this is maybe something someone would like to explore for developing.
Because that's quite playful, and it's a good introduction to the parents as well into
a nice way to target the parents, because of course, in terms of marketing, when you are developing a collection, a matchy collection between a woman and the children, a dad with the children, it's also how you bring your own image, how you project your own image to your kids. So it's also a way to, let's say, broaden your lifestyle, your values also by...
and also it's great because it could be for the big occasion, the weddings,
exactly,
the Christmas, where you have to do something a bit special and look a bit special. It kind of, you know, the mini-me and the matching outfit is good for introducing the brand to the parents, making the kids like it because they are dressed like daddy, and then they can grow into the brand how they are growing up into like teenagers, I should say, like, you know, like my son wears some of my sweater because he used to like them from when he was very little, blah, 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 things like that. And I think that, mini-me's, even if you don't actually have, or you don't really want to have a children's brand, the mini-me with having the matching outfit is good stuff for a brand who wants to add value at Christmas, for instance, but doesn't want to do children's wear all year round, but just for Christmas. That's very good.
Or it's also a way to attract or to inform adults that they also are going to launch a children's wear line.
Absolutely, and to test the market and to seed the market and to see how that one
how they respond to it,
yes,
if they like it, what kind of adjustment they should do before launching, you know.
And you can do that on RSVP only, so you can have this dress, but if you want that, you need to be on the waiting list, voilà. And then you can see the response of people, you know, if they're going to be very interested. So you create the desire.
People are used to it, and then the demand increase as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alors, when it comes also to the mini-me trends, you also have all those children on social network. So we could have a debate regarding the use, let's say, of the image of very young children. But this is another topic. The presence of young children as influencer has increased a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have as well. Children influencers of like 6 years old, and they have millions of followers. It's really amazing. Voilà. So. I would also like to share, so here you have a few examples of famous children followers, Miss Coco, voilà. And also you have an American boy, very influent on YouTube. His name is Ryan. He's 6 years old, and he has, let me double check, earned 11 million of dollars between within 2 years. Can you imagine that? It's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. So another trend for brands is unisex or gender neutral. So gender neutral brands, this is not totally new. Because you have clothing brands for children, which are claiming to be gender neutral, since the 70s. Maybe more from Scandinavia or in the UK, okay? But now you have a lot of new independent brand, let's say, who have come to the scene. So you have retailers who have developed, big retailers, Zara, Target, but also like Abercrombie, who has launched, let's say, capsule collections and have display gender neutral collection in their boutiques. Okay.
Can I just say, could you describe what is a capsule collection?
Capsule collection is a small collection, like 5-10 pieces, okay, that you launch a part of your main collection during a season, like a dropped collection, and it's limited. So, voilà. So you usually for ready-to-wear collection, for example, for summer, your collection hits the store in January. in March. And then you can also want to have a capsule collection, I don't know, in June, just for summer, for example. Okay.
And then, is there any evidence that capsule collection works well, or is it a waste of money?
Again, the thing is, when you start a relationship with your customer, it is also very important to keep communicating with him through the season. So when your collection hits the store in January, and then you talk to him when the next time it's in June, it does not make sense. So because it's a very crowded market, because kids, parents are also very informed, and they are they have more and more content, and they are in contact with many brands. So they will forget you very quickly if you stop communicating, and if you stop creating this relationship with them. So you really have to let's say work on an ongoing communication with them, and a capsule collection could be a nice hook to communicate with them through the season.
And I think, capsule collection is actually a very good way of launching a collection as well. Even if it's your first collection, it's a very good way of launching a collection. If it's your very first collection, rather than going into, even if it's not kids, but rather than going into like a 20 pieces.
Well, even 15.
It's good to have maybe a capsule where you have only like 5 or 6, and even less. You could even have 3 pieces.
Make it maybe 3 is a little bit. It's not enough, but yes, it's better to make it simple and to make it small, but good.
Yeah.
Well. Yeah. But beside the where big brands are working on a gender neutral collection, you also have independent brands who are claiming to be gender neutral for all of their products. Okay, so instead of integrated neutral capsule, gender neutral capsule collection into their offer, they instill the concept at all
across the brand. Okay.
All across the brand. Yeah. Okay.
We have 15 minutes left, so we're gonna do 5 more minutes. Sustainability, we need to talk about that, and then we're gonna do some questions. Sustainability is super important. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so once again, everybody knows that the fashion industry is being more and more eco-conscious. So when you build a brand, and especially for children, because you have to take that into account, also because your customer feels very concerned about it, okay? So what is interesting, it's maybe to use what we call dead stock. It's fabrics that are leftover fabrics that have not been used by the fashion houses for previous collections. So you have small designers who call the fashion brand, okay, and say, okay, do you have leftover? Can you give it to me, or can I buy it at a very low price? And then this designer, this creator is going to design a collection, a fashion collection, an accessorized collection, bags, in fabrics and so on, using the dead stock of other fashion houses.
Yeah,
okay? So I think it's interesting. And also, it may be a little bit cheaper to start building a collection than buying maybe expensive raw materials. Okay.
And also in Nigeria or on the African continent, there's a lot of dead stock sent from Europe to Africa, and you can buy it by the weight, you know. And sometimes, I mean, from my experience going to Togo, I was shocked. I've seen some Agnes B dead stock. I've seen some Lacoste dead stock. I've seen Vanessa Bruno dead stock. I was just like, what? And that is something that you could really use, because you know it's incredibly what you can find in the second-hand market of dead stock.
Alors, dead stock, it's dead stock fabric, okay? So it's fabric, it's not an outfit, it's not a garment yet, okay? It's leftover fabrics. And then you buy the fabrics and you create whatever you want. Then it comes when you have leftover of collections with clothes and garments, blah, blah. Here comes what we call second-hand collection, okay? So it's booming, not only for economics, let's say crisis reason, okay? It's also because you have like influencers who and moms more and more concerned about more and more eco-friendly, let's say. And it's kind of very cool now to be able to buy second-hand with this vintage trend in order to be able to create, let's say, very unique outfit for and a very stylish look for your kid with a very maybe rare of a clothes from a previous collection with a clothes from on a regular basis. So it's also a mix of crisis, but also vintage touch that also is very booming at the moment. And now it's not taboo anymore, even for high-end spender to say that, oh, I bought a beautiful pieces in a second-hand store or on the second-hand website. Besides that, you have also what we call rental services. More brands also and key players are developing this kind of services for their clients, okay? And another one here, you have a GIF. It's a collaboration of the brand Gap with an atelier based in LA, which is called Atelier and Repair. And the idea is also repair clothes. When there is a hole to your jacket, find a way to upcycle your clothes and make it very unique by using leftover fabrics also in order to be able to repair it. And this is also a huge trend, actually, maybe more in the adult wear, but you have more and more collaboration with this kind of opportunities.
And therefore, I really want to also to touch on that, because people think, I want to work in fashion, I want to have a fashion business, but sometimes to have a fashion business can be servicing also the people in the fashion. So you could be like little tick on the back of someone's back and serve them as well. You do not have to have connection to work in fashion.
You do not have to create the clothes to have a business in fashion.
Yeah. So we have two questions here. So right. I've got Debbie Fulan, who's been dying since last week. She's been bugging me because she wanted to speak to you. She's a new brand and she wants to go and start with a mono product.
With a what?
Mono product. And she wants to know, is it too much to use all the trends at the same time? Example, her product is a hoodie, gender neutral and evolutive. Is it too much at once?
I don't know, not to me. I mean, if it makes sense to the market, and if you have a potential customer interesting, why not?
Yeah, and maybe Fulan, I really want to say, I don't think it's too much at all. And in terms of the storytelling, that is very interesting. And you have a lot of, there's a lot to do with the storytelling, because this makes it into recycling, styles, comfort, innovation. So I think that it's actually good, as long as the product is also as appealing as the idea. It could be a very good product, you know. It's like, for instance, in England, you cannot have a product without a hood because of the rain. So all our coats have a hood, but the hood, you can zip them on and off because, you know, it's always raining, but not always raining. And sometimes you go abroad and you don't need a hood. But it's true that in comparison to France, where a hood is not always necessary and it would be more an effect of style, in the UK, you need it. But then if you take it to the continent, you need a hood when it's raining season. And if you go higher in the Altas, it's quite cold, and you need that. So I think you have a multi-purpose, multi-country, multi-usage product. And I don't think, personally, I don't think it's too much, and it's great because you can target a lot of different storytelling users, consumer with that. Then we have a second question.
Well, quickly, adjustable clothes also, it's interesting.
Yes, yes.
Video, very funny. Reversible clothes, blah, blah. So this is also something you can have in mind when designing the brand. And also wellness, and especially in this pandemic and COVID time. There is also a few innovation, also organic fabrics, anti-macrobiological substance you can add to the fabric as well, non-chemical, blah, blah. This is also very interesting. And also you have like brands who had what they call disinfectant finishes to the clothes in order to make sure that the products last longer, and then you reduce a little bit the washing. Okay, bon, voilà.
Second question from Ferelis.
Ouais.
She wants to know, what is the best way to reach the customer and build awareness for a DTC kids brand? So first of all, you need to explain what is DTC, which is direct to consumer. Two questions. So explain what is direct to consumer, and then what is the best way to reach consumer and bring and build awareness for a direct to consumer kids brand.
Alors, just regarding awareness and regarding building a brand, really you have to be patient. No, man. So either you have a huge budget in order to help you to start building your brand awareness, but honestly, it's very difficult. Even for established brand, even for brands who has been established for more than 20 years. Okay, awareness is very difficult. As we said, we live in a very crowded market. Yeah. So it's very, very difficult. A lot of brands are created every day. So when you sell your products, of course, online, again, it's what are the your customer, your targeted customer is interested in what? I don't know. Does he like cinema? Does he like to go to concert? Does he like gaming? So you have to target those communities, let's say, through social media's activations. So if you have budget, you can do social media campaigns. Ooh, great. Mais it takes time, really. So you really have to be patient, and you have to build your brand step by step, collection after collection. Do not hesitate also to create the buzz during the fashion week or during a professional salon. For example, at PTU Homo, or even in Paris with Who's Next or whatever, you have sometimes a kind of happening outside in front of everybody, in front of all the buyers, and you have someone creating a buzz. Everybody is taking pictures, posting on their social media, and then step by step, it will help you to start building your brand awareness. So it's really a mix.
So, I just want to add as well, you need to think, I think the key with children, you need to be fun, you know, because like we said,
it depends
like Sophie said,
again.
No, of course, it depends on the positioning, but you also have to remember that for a parent to shop children clothes, it's never a good experience. It's horrible. The kid doesn't want to go.
Then you have the subscription boxes.
You know, but it's like the kids don't want to go. They never want to try. It's a fight. It's a battle. I fight with my one all the time. I still buy his clothes. I still do his shopping. He wears pretty much whatever I wanna. I buy, as long as it's his size, and it's not only for trainers. Trainers, he knows about it, so that is his stuff. But trousers, so everything else, I buy for him. So he needs to also think outside of the box. So because it's so boring for me to buy stuff for him, so boring. Yes, do have a collaboration, but also do not be shy about what you're doing. That shout it on the top of the roof, you know, do it, make it fun, make it an experience, make it that people remember it, make it easy and quick, because children...
Do a gathering with your friend and ask your friend to organize a gathering with a friend of your friend as well, in order to be able to present your brand. Do a private sale at home with when you will be able to have something nice enough to be able to co-host even at her or his home, in order to invite more people to discover your brand. So it's really, it doesn't need, you don't have necessarily to spend 15,000 euros to do events.
If I shall say, it's true, it depends on the age. If it's a newborn baby, it's very cute, and you're gonna spend the money, and you know, and it's gonna feel so special. And okay, if they are under 5, but when you start like 8 years, 9, 10, the pleasure of buying clothes to them, because they really need to be there, because they're gonna have them like for 6 months and then it's gonna be gone. So the communication is very different, because if it's under 5, it's easy. As long as mommy found it cute, baby will wear it, period. Unless it's very, very uncomfortable, right? And therefore, you have to seduce the mother. You have to make it an experience for the mother.
You have also a lot of dad influencers.
Yes, of course. But I mean, the parents, you know, the mother, the parents, whatever. But you have to seduce the adult that's going to make the first child, whether it's the auntie, the dad, the mom, the grandmother. Exactly. Okay, because that present, that clothes is not actually to run around. It's a gift that's going to be worn twice. One picture to say thank you, grandma. One day, and then it's going to be over. Or it's going to be for the big opportunities. But then by the time the kids might be too big. And then when the children are older, it's when it's getting a bit more trickier, because you have a conjunction of so many things together to make the brand comfortable, to deliver what they say they can do, for the kids to want to wear it. Because how many times mother has been to a shop, they bought something and the kids are, nah, not wearing that. And you're like, yes, yeah, nah, really no. And all they do is they stay in their joggers, you know?
The thing is also what you see on the screen with subscription boxes, it helps the parents. So they define the kind of profile of their children. And then the brands send you, for example, a selection of clothes, 8 to 15 selection of clothes per month. And then you can pick them and choose them according to the selection the brand sent to you. Then they deliver the products to your home without paying in advance. And then if your kids like them, you keep them. then you pay, and if you don't like them, you can return them for free.
And also,
so
you know,
convenient.
And also, if you address your brand to younger children, or even older children, maybe you can start a club, you know, where through that club, the kids will adhere to your brand, or there would be also the children, if it's an older child, say, oh, I like what they are doing, I like the topic that and then they will adhere to it. I have a 11 years old who wants me to buy him Supreme. He's never even seen the brand. He don't know what the brand is about, but he wants a Supreme t-shirt for Christmas because it talks to him. I don't know, where have you ever heard about this brand? So maybe
people wearing Supreme are very cool, so
yes.
he wants to be cool, he wants to buy Supreme.
No, absolutely. So, you know, it's like, it's very much like address. I think that also there's a way to addressing people with intention and directly, and know who you want to capture. Collaborate in a very clear way, be very clear, be very upfront, be very, not necessarily loud, but be very, talk about what you're doing and people will come. If you don't talk clearly, consistently, repeatedly about what you're doing, people won't see, people won't know it, people will not get into it, you know, that's the thing. And something else.
You can also ask your community to help you, I don't know, on the creation of the collection, to pick colors of dresses, things like that, in order also to create a strong relationship with them. It's not only push from the brand to the customer in order, oh, see how my product is great, can you buy it please? No, it's how you build the relationship with them, how you make them, you involve them in the development of your brand, for example, as well.
And I'm just going to do a little bracket here. In the audience, we have a gentleman which is called CFL Group Media. He's one of the best, amazing director in France. I think he's from, where are you from? I'm not even sure where you're from. He's amazing. So if you need someone to help you with storytelling, for instance, I would very strongly advise to everyone to connect to him. And to get back to what Ferelis was asking about the visibility and connecting, really, I think you need to go with intention. Be very, very intentional. Pick your collaborators, pick your activities. Like me, there's a magazine called Okido, fantastic magazine for children. They do beautiful drawings. Well, aside of that, they also have a science club. They also have a food club. So me, I've got to know them through the science club. And then I took a subscription to the magazine. So there is stuff like that. Maybe your brand could have a sewing class, you know, for little children. Maybe your brand could collaborate with Montessori school. And that is worse for any kind of brand. If you're struggling for visibility, partner with people. And to partner with a sewing class, okay, they might not have like 50,000 visibility, but they have 20 people who love what you're doing, and 20 people makes it 40 because they talk.
If they are in total affinity with your target, go for it.
Absolutely. And they do not have to be by big numbers. Me, I always say, I'd rather have 10 or 15 people who are 100% into what I'm doing, that 100 that just tourists, and that I can't rely on, or I can't do anything with it. And the numbers is not as important of the quality of those numbers, you know? It's really, it's not. And also, like Sophie said, you need time. You really need time, but you need to use this time very cleverly, you know, because also I know that Fabulous is not selling clothes, she's building a brand. And to build a brand until you've got this recognition from people, you need to be extremely active with your collaboration, and you need to also produce a lot of content.
Yeah.
You know, and not
content.
Yeah, videos.
You
need to produce videos. It's one of the first thing, you know, the video content is what get people engaged the most and engage children the most as well. So you really need to think about that. Do we have another question? I don't know. How long do we have, Mayowa? How long do we have? Yeah, I think that
we can still go for 10, 15 minutes if there's need for that. If there's need for that, we can still.
So I think Sophie needs to go Sophie needs to go in 5 to 10 minutes, I think.
10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes. So we've got 10 minutes left, and then I will pick you up with you, Mayowa. So all together, and to close, we could take one more question. We could take one more question, but all together, how would you, what would be, give me 3 marketing tips and then 3 tips specifically for a kids brand.
What do you mean tips for what?
Tips like, you know, your brand, what 3 tips to take your brand to the next level? You know, what would it be? And that more specifically, if you have a children brand, like 3 inside tips on how to take the brand further.
The thing is not maybe to take the brand further, but when you, I mean, this, if we are in this idea of launching a brand, and really is to also focus on your customer needs. Okay, so we have discussed through the presentation, and I have presented you a few insights also on the main maybe insights and topics that people that are browsing, you know, around, and that people are, and the customer are really concerned about. So today, when you are a fashion brand, you cannot anymore ignore sustainability. Voilà. So today, especially in times of crisis, people want to buy brands that have a purpose, that are meaningful, and that are able to show how concerned they are about their own environment as well. So you have also to take care of the others and take care of the planet all together at the same time. So of course it has to, you have to speak truth to the people. So if you are not concerned about clothing waste worldwide, if you are not concerned about developing an eco-friendly brand, you cannot go to this path. But still, I think that today, if you want to be successful, you, of course, have to provide a brand that your customer expect. And you have to take care these topics into consideration.
Okay. Okay. And for kids brand, and specifically kids brand, what would be like a little tip that, you know, that a little trick that you used to have when you were doing kids, something that a little bit of insight that could help them to...
Natural fabrics, and I say second hand and reuse. To me, it's really key for adjustable clothes. I think it's it's less developed, and I think there is something very interesting to work on about these trends.
And I would add to this in terms of tips, and I keep saying it, but I think people don't. 3 tricks, whether it's kids brand or fashion brand or whatever. First trick, collaborate. Find the right collaborator. Second tricks, like we have Yemzi also. Yemzi, she's from Nigeria and she does high-end silk. She does amazing products. She's based in London and everything is made in silk. But she also has a blog and she interviews people. So have something outside of your brand that generates interest. People that maybe they're not interested in silk, but they will be interested in your brand and therefore they, oh, and what else does she do? Oh, she does that. Oh, actually that's great. And you know, and then they get that. And my third trick, build a community. I don't know who can afford nowadays to launch a product without building a community. You must have a lot of money because nobody can. If you do not have a community before you launch your product, it's going to be 10 times harder because all the time you're spending to try to get visibility, that would have been the time where you get that community, you work on your product at the back, and by the time your community is hooked up on the product, bam, you just have to sell them to them. So 3 tips is build a community beforehand, make that community very strong with mail out, and make sure that when you have a mail out, you get responses. If you don't get responses or if you don't get engagement from the mail out, it means that there's something you're not doing. So do you have a call to action in your mail out? Make sure you do. Second, I kind of lost my way here. The content is content is king. Work your content, plan your content, invest in your content. Videos are the keys, and I can't say that enough. Even if you do like small videos at home, but if you can't afford to have someone to do it for you, fine. But videos is king. So content, mail out, the community, have something in addition, have one added value on top of your collection that would bring people. So it could be a club, it could be a partnership with a club, but something which is lifestyleish to your brand, to bring people and to get people to gather around your brand. That would be my 3 tips. If you just start with this, sales will pick up and visibility will pick up. But do not confuse visibility with sales. Visibility do not necessarily bring you sales. Call to action will bring you sales.
To me, I would say customer, know your customer, okay? Yeah. Branding, really. Build your brand identity, it's really key. And then be consistent, but also be able to be agile and be able maybe to pivot sometimes a little bit, especially during crisis. Voilà.
and therefore, when we say that, it's really like innovation is key. Always have innovation at the heart of your business, especially when there's a crisis, especially when there's a disruption. Like at the moment, the pandemic is a big distraction. So what did I do with my business? I gathered all my experts and I did a 1-week conference. And that's fantastic because you get to know me, I get to know you, but that's an added value to my business. And now me, and now Sophie, we all know that at some point, this will generate something one way or another. This will generate something. And therefore my business still afloat, still alive. I've been noticed for other things, for my expertise, and that is the added value to my business. And that makes my other clients that actually are paying me every day to do my job, that makes them confident that they employ the best. So that's my added value. That's how I promote my business. You need to find the key on how to promote your business outside of your clothes, outside of your service. Well, Sophie, thank you.
Fun.
Sorry?
Have fun because it's a very long path. Voilà.
Yes, it needs to be fun.
With a lot of difficulties, so always have fun.
Yeah, try to really keep the passion up, because if you don't do it with passion because you believe it, nobody will buy it from you, because nobody else will believe it either, you know. And there's no reason to go into fashion unless you really love it, because fashion is very ungrateful, so you need to absolutely love it. But Sophie, thank you very much. I know that you have to. That was a wonderful session.